Hey everybody, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Oral Reports. Now, as I said many times on this show, it's been 10 summers since me and my family got to take an overseas vacation in London. And trust me, that was a really interesting and awesome experience for me. Seeing things like the Harrods department store where my mother used to work, seeing We Will Rock You on stage, as well as the Tower of London, Big Ben, the London Bridge, the Globe Theatre, King's Cross Station, and more. However, almost a year after my trip, I got to know several online reviewers on Mr. Coates' website, and after watching several of Huey Toonmore's old reviews prior to 2011, there was one animated movie that he looked at, which I never saw or heard about when I was a kid. But at the same time, I became very interested in checking it out. And ever since I began my blog show in 2013, I thought that I should give my own thoughts on it too. So, let's get started. Released in the United Kingdom on August 14th, 1992, the movie is Freddie as F.R.O.7. Now, this is the story about a prince named Frederick, who is turned into a frog by his wicked Aunt Messina, and years later, he becomes a secret agent in the French Secret Service. Freddie, now living in modern-day Paris, is hired by British intelligence and joins up with a martial artist named Dappers and a Scottish weapons inventor named Scotty to solve the mysterious disappearances of some of Britain's greatest monuments. So, what do I think about the movie anyway? Well, after giving this movie a watch on YouTube during the summer of 2011, like Huey, I actually enjoyed it. Still, I feel bad that this happened. Yep, the film bombed due to being negatively received by critics and audiences during its UK release. However, in order to explain why I enjoy this movie, let's head over to Mustang Notes. Now, believe it or not, the movie was inspired by bedtime stories that the director, John Asefsky, told to his son about his favorite toy frog working as a secret agent. Kind of like a James Bond parody. It was in development and filmed from 1989 to 1991. Miramax Films purchased the film for distribution in North America. A week after its UK release, the film was released in August 28th of 1992 in 1,257 theaters. It was initially set with a G rating by the MPAA, but was later re-rated to PG due to complaints by parents in regards to the double entendres and racial sensitive elements. However, in 1995, MCA/Universal Home Video released the film on home video under an alternate re-edited version, renaming the movie as Freddie the Frog, with new narration by James Earl Jones. Nearly 20 minutes of footage was cut, and several sequences were re-edited. Not only was this idea to make the movie more family-friendly, but it was also an attempt to make the movie less confusing to viewers. Sadly, as of today, the film is still regarded as a highly obscure animated movie, which neither the original 1992 theatrical version or the 1995 re-edited version received a DVD or Blu-ray release. However, thankfully, both versions of the movie can still be viewed on YouTube. However, I've been suggested to only watch the uncut UK version, since I heard the American version has a lot of problems. Also to note, while Freddie has held the record of the lowest grossing animated movie at the US box office, as of August 2009, movies like The Ten Commandments and Delgo have grossed less than F.R.O.7 did. Now, what do I think about the animation? Well, I think the hand-drawn animation in this film is pretty good. From Freddie's backstory, to Nessie's underwater home, to London. Speaking of which, I like that this movie is mostly set in London, because it brings back memories from my time visiting there. And of course, some of the monuments that are stolen are some of the few that I actually visited, like Buckingham Palace, Big Ben, Stonehenge, St. Paul's Cathedral, Nelson's Column, and the Tower of London, which was my first stop back then. However, while watching this movie, I noticed that there are a few flaws, and the ones that stuck out the most are these racist crows from the Tower of London. Also, Freddie's car, Nicole, feels like a big-lipped alligator moment. Why? Because the movie never explains where she came from, who built her, or how she does what she can do. Also, because this movie was made in England, there are some parts that can be a little mature and suggestive for younger children. Also, I think some of the writing in this movie is pretty creative, due to the stolen monuments containing the fighting spirits of the British ancestors. Also, after watching this movie again, I kind of get the feeling that it might have influenced the Despicable Me movies a bit. Think about it. Minions takes place in London. The first Despicable Me film has stolen monuments and buildings like a pyramid, a jumbotron, as well as the Statue of Liberty and Eiffel Tower from Las Vegas. And the second movie has an overweight villain with a Spanish name. And now, let's talk about the movie's musical numbers. First, we have the villain song, Evil Mania, sung by the evil Messina. Now, to me, this has got to be my absolute favorite in the entire movie, due to it being a mix of 70s funk and 90s hip-hop. And I think it's really catchy, and I really like when these soldier statues sing in the background like a chorus. By the way, during my senior year of high school, before I knew about this movie, I came across this song while browsing through South Jersey Sam's old Halloween music videos, which featured this song. And I couldn't help but tap my feet while listening to it. So, I guess you can say that Huey isn't the only reviewer I should thank for leading me to this movie. Anyway, while I do think it's a great song to listen to, at the same time, it's really insane when Messina kills henchmen while singing, and the use of Nazis and KKK members makes it kind of controversial. Next we have Shy Girl, sung by Nessie, when she introduces Freddie to her family. To me, this song is very cute, and I think it's pretty similar to Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid, Beautiful Briny Sea from Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and One Small Thing from My Little Pony the movie. Also, to me, this is the kind of song that'll make you forget about your own problems. Finally, we have Lay Down Your Arms, performed by Asia, while Freddie, Dappers, and Scotty fight El Supremo's soldiers. To me, while the fight is pretty silly in choreography, the song itself is classical early 90s rock and roll. And now let's talk about the characters and the voice actors who brought them to life. The title character, Freddie, is voiced by Ben Kingsley, who got to be in the 2016 Jungle Book remake, Laika's The Box Trolls, Iron Man 3, and Thunderbirds. Freddie used to be a human prince until his evil aunt Messina kills his father and turns him into a frog. But after Freddie becomes an adult, he becomes a member of the French Secret Service. You know, I find Freddie to be a charming and a clever character. Plus, I like that Freddie thinks that the powers of the mind will always overcome violence. Next up we have Dappers, a martial artist expert and Freddie's love interest, voiced by Jenny Agutter, who got to be Councilwoman Holly in The Avengers. I like her too. I mean, sure, she is pretty and she has awesome martial arts skills, but at the same time, Dappers is quick on her feet and she's smart, like during the scene when El Supremo brainwashes her into becoming one of his followers. But in reality, Dappers was just playing along. Next is Scotty, a weapons inventor voiced by John Sessions, who got to be in the late 90s A Midsummer Night's Dream movie. Scotty is another likable character, and I think his weapons and gadgets are very handy when the situation calls for it, while a few can be kind of cartoony a bit. The main villain, El Supremo, is voiced by Brian Blessed, who would later voice Clayton in Disney's Tarzan and Boss Nass in Star Wars Episode 1. This guy is responsible for stealing the various English monuments with a giant robotic snake ship. El Supremo's evil plan is to shrink said monuments to the size of a trophy and use them as batteries to a giant crystal, which will send a powerful sleeping virus across the world, which will put people to sleep, allowing him to invade and enslave them. The evil Messina is voiced by the late Billy Whitlaw, who got to be in The Omen and Hot Fuzz. Messina is Freddie's wicked power-hungry aunt, who's responsible for killing his parents and turning Freddie into a frog. Mostly throughout this movie, she remains in the form of a cobra while teaming up with El Supremo to conquer the world. To me, Messina's cobra form is kind of frightening, but at the same time, it's kind of suggestive. Another character to talk about is Nessie, voiced by Phyllis Logan, who was in last year's Downton Abbey movie. Nessie is a Loch Ness monster who becomes a friend and ally to Freddie after he removes a boulder from her tail. In return, Nessie tells Freddie to whistle for her in case he ever needed help. In my opinion, Nessie is a really cute character, certainly a lot better than this. Plus, I like when she and her family help Freddie stop a fleet of submarines from attacking England by sending them in circles in order to prevent them from surfacing. And now for my final words. Overall, Freddie as F.R.O.7 is not a perfect movie, but it is pretty decent, and the setting in London is very nostalgic. The movie's animation is pretty good, despite some exaggeration here and there, and several characters are pretty decent in their own way, while a few are completely useless. But on the bright side, the songs are pretty good and catchy to listen to. So, I guess this is a movie that you'd add to those underrated. And I'm glad that Huey Toonmore led me to this movie back in 2011. Also, if you folks want to check this movie out, I would suggest you to only watch the uncut UK version. As for my rating, I'll give it a 62% out of 100. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to join me for my next vlog. Mustang Power.